In this session, we will learn about Agilist superpowers
and the importance of leaders to upgrade, downshift, and expand. Welcome to episode 30 of the Leading Complexity podcast. This is where we explore the art of leading organization in today's complex and hyper-competitive landscape. We do this together with some of the world's foremost thinkers in leadership. My name is Tomas Björkholm, and with me I have Michael Göthe.
In this episode, we will listen to Lyssa Adkins. She's a leading agility and leadership coach and author of the Coaching Agile Teams and a long-term friend of CRISP. She has shaped agile coaching as a profession. She helps teams and leaders navigate complexity, build resilience, and lead with impact. In this episode, she shares some powerful insights on leadership, collaboration, and thriving in an unpredictable world.
Let's listen to Lyssa Adkins. This program is about leading in complexity. Could you please let us know a little bit how your view about complexity?
The thing that helps me get to the essence of complexity is this idea that in a complex environment, the same inputs do not give you the same outputs. And how aggravating and confounding is that? It would be so nice if, we could reproduce the same thing again and again, and that there were not that many surprises. And in a complex, interconnected, always on, ever changing environment, we don't get to choose the surprises, and we don't get to settle down into the one way it's always going to work. So that's how I think about complexity.
Yeah, so how should we deal with this continuously changing world?
The interesting thing about a continuously changing world is that it is full of opportunity, as long as you don't find your personal sense of safety in a specific outcome happening a specific way. So in the work that I do with leaders and with the functioning of leadership teams, that's something we're always confronting, because people want it a certain way and they see it that they could be that way. And in previous eras, it was actually possible to predict things more accurately, to plan to get there. And, you'd still have some surprises, but be more or less a straight line, and not so anymore. And so, of course, this rocks each of us, it rocks us right to our core, goes right to our sense of safety and belonging and significance. And so then we get to work with identity crises, which are super fun, wonderful, challenging moments in people's lives.
Yeah, great. So your speech at the program will be about our planetary challenges and about the Agilists' emerging superpowers. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, and what will people bring with them after your session?
Yeah, so the angle I'm going to take here is through this idea of Agilists having emerging superpowers and us being in a world of planetary challenges, is the question of what is the leader's agile transformation? And for those of you listening to this, I just did agile in air quotes because I think it's important to mark that for leaders, their transformation is necessarily different than what other people in the organization go through when they are starting to use Agile or any of these future of work process and human technologies. And how it links to planetary challenges is that, well, two ways I would say. I predict that pretty soon our planetary challenges, things like really intense storms caused by climate change, things like the rise of extremism and mass migration for any number of reasons, war and climate change, whatever, like all of those things are going to be big business at some point. So that's one angle about planetary challenges. But the other angle is that we might not have enough minds in the game in order to meet our planetary challenges. And so the question I'm always holding is, what can leaders and leadership teams do in their organizations to increase people's engagement in their organizations, not only for the organization's good, but for the coming challenges that we're likely to face? And, that gets to the existential question of, will we still be here as a thriving human existence on the planet?
Ooh, this is really big questions.
Really big questions.
Yeah. Wow. Will you fit that all in 90 minutes?
I will. And we're just going to take it really down to 3 specific things that I have found are useful as I've been working with leaders and leadership teams. And I keep saying leaders and leadership teams as 2 separate things, because I do think there is a role for leaders to develop their own complexity as individual people. But the way we find our way together is in how leadership teams function. And I often say that what happens in the leadership team happens to the organization. And so often you can see a microcosm of how the organization is behaving based on how the leadership team functions. And so it's really high impact. It's super high leverage for leadership teams to function well. So long story short is, we're going to hit 3 things: upgrade, downshift, and expand. So back to the complexity thing you just asked me. So upgrade is about upgrading one's own mental complexity. And guess what? There are lots of known ways to do this. Upgrade. The second is downshift. Ways to downshift one's nervous system. So I just noticed that my camera just went off. That's really interesting. Okay, so I'll pick it up with downgrade.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Weird. Okay. So the second one is downgrade. Ways to downgrade one's own nervous system. And as I worked with leadership teams more and more, I noticed, wow, that person's triggered. Oh, wait, hang on. Now that person's triggered. Now that one is. And before you know it, we have a bunch of people in a conversation, and their executive functions, their ability to function and think critically and to have empathy for one another, is actually offline. And they're trying to make difficult decisions in that environment. It doesn't work so well. So there are ways to downshift one's own nervous system. So that's upgrade, downshift. The third one is expand. And this is where the functioning of the leadership team as a cohesive whole comes in.
Again.
Wow, it is. And I'm noticing that it's happening, that my camera is actually going off. So this is a brand new machine, by the way. A brand new MacBook Air. So I'm going to be calling Apple. Okay, so let me come back to down.
I have the same machine here.
Crazy.
Okay, let's start.
So I'm going to come back with the recap.
Mm-hmm.
So that's downshift. So upgrade, downshift, and the third one is expand. And it's expanding the capabilities of the leadership team itself. I talk about 5 core competencies that every team, but especially leadership teams, need to develop in the way they function. And so that's basically it. This is not necessarily the end all be all, like a perfect model of everything leadership teams and leaders need, but these are the 3 things that I'm noticing are hindering our ability to be more of a match for leading in complexity.
Great. I'm really happy that you talk about leadership teams, not leadership groups, because to be honest, most leadership constellations I meet are groups. Like, they're not working together. They are rather trying to make sure that their department looks better than the other ones, not collaborating. So very interesting. Also, I want to hear more about this upgrade. Sorry, you have to help me.
Upgrade, downshift, expand.
That's exactly.
That was great listening to Lyssa. She's mentioning the emerging superpowers of Agilists. Which are they?
Well, the superpower of Agilists is the ability to guide themselves in difficult situations where there is no clear right and there is no winning strategy. So if we talk about the different superpowers, it's actually kind of the heart of Agile, which is about collaboration, learning, and adaptation. It's also the importance of transparency, like inspecting and adapting, which is typically agile things we are talking about. But it's also that Lyssa is mentioning this idea of upgrade and downshift and expand. But I think that needs a little bit more of an explanation, and maybe you can help us with that.
Yes, she talks about the concept of upgrade, downshift, and expand, and I think it's a really good model she has there. First of all, the upgrade, and that is kind of helping leaders to upgrade their mental capabilities, seeing complex things. So the ability to kind of to see wide and broad and handle complex, more complex situations, to see basically systems of systems, to handle the complexity better. At the same time, we need to downshift, kind of meaning that we need to calm our nervous systems. If we are under stress or press, we cannot really think creatively, be calm, take the right decisions. And as humans, we are adapted to nature. So without the kind of complexities that we create in our organizations, we can be more creative, and if we kind of reduce the stress and calm down. So that's a downshift. And the third one is the expanding, and that is kind of expanding the competences of your leadership team, using the capabilities and the knowledge that you have already. And if you can integrate all the different aspects using the collective intelligence, then we have better capabilities of dealing with complexity. So I think these are three really great areas and a good model for improving your capability to handle complex and uncertain things. So maybe, Thomas, you can tell us a bit more about the 4 competences of leadership teams that you mentioned.
Absolutely. We can talk about the 5 competences that Lyssa is suggesting. And she's talking about communication. And it's important to involve a lot of people. We are in the expand area here. And being able to openly exchange information among team members, among teams, between teams, leadership and teams, etc., etc. The second core competence she's talking about is the collaboration. Obviously, since, as we have talked about in so many episodes, in complexity, the way of dealing with it is to collaborate between different skills, because the answer is not within one skill. The answer is between different skills, usually. The third competence she's talking about is the creativity. The importance of innovating. So leaders need to create an environment where innovation is easy to happen, kind of. Fourth thing is conflict. And again, if we have an open environment, you could say, where people can speak fluently and they can share ideas and so on, we will have more conflicts. Hard to be without, I guess. So being good at dealing with those conflicts and also addressing them and seeing them very early is also very important. And last thing is change, adapting to and managing transition within teams and in the organization. Kind of living with uncertainty, I would say. I also know that Lyssa very much likes to talk about this question if we have a leadership team or a leadership group. Michael, maybe you can help sorting out what's the difference between team and group, and what does that mean when we talk about the leadership team or leadership group?
I think it ties back to the concept of the expand there. So unless you can really utilize the competence, the intelligence, the perspectives of the whole team, you will not be really able to handle the complex situations. You need to have the collective kind of intelligence and be able to see the whole. And it's so common that leadership teams are actually leadership groups. That means that in a group, you're basically focusing on your individual responsibilities, your individual kind of accountabilities. And in this situation, the team lead or the group lead is the one that you're accountable for, basically. And there's a lot of one-on-one discussions, one-on-one accountabilities, and you tend to optimize for your department or for the team that you're leading rather than optimizing for the whole. So one key concept here is that if you're part of a leadership team, you need to have that as your primary team, so that you first of all focus on the common good for the whole and use the kind of leverage that team. And then you might spend most of your days leading people in your organization, but that's the kind of secondary team. And then build a team with mutual accountability, mutual kind of work products, joint responsibilities, like a sports team. You win together or you lose together. It's not that as an individual player you perform. So I think this is key. And if there is not alignment between two persons in a leadership team, well, you cannot really expect for people out in the organization to breach that gap. If you know that your manager is not kind of pulling in the same direction as someone else's manager, it's kind of too much to ask for to breach that. But on the opposite, if the leadership team, if they are aligned, collaborating, you cannot really escalate any kind of discrepancies, and the silo mentality kind of dissipate, and you start collaborating across organizations. So it's a real key. It's so important.
So what you're saying is that the CFO, to just take one example, should belong mostly to the top management team and secondary to the top finance team.
Yes, of course. So CFO works for the company and not for the kind of his department. Even though he might spend most of his time maybe leading others in his department, he has to kind of put the overall team first.
That's interesting. So there's a difference where you spend most time and where you have your heart, kind of.
Yeah.
Which team? Okay, interesting. Maybe it's time to summarize today's session.
Yes, so I think a key that Lyssa brings up is that Agilists are really equipped to handle complexity. I think they're really used to managing different uncertainties. There's things that are not really predictable. And another thing is also that the Agilists are kind of equipped to take these difficult conversations. Many have coach training and can ask those kind of tough coaching questions. So the second part there is kind of taking those more challenging conversations. And she even encouraged Agilists to bring up conversations around leadership transformation, and even thinking more of a global or sustainability scale, that how can we influence change in the world. And I think, Agilists are really good change agents in complexity.
Interesting. We also talked about upgrading, to upgrade your mind so you can better make sense of the complex environment. So you can see further and you can see wider. And you also can see the system and how you have dependencies among a lot of things.
And then the downshift. I'm thinking of Jennifer Garvey-Bergen that we've had also interviewed here, and her latest book on complexity genius, that as humans we are equipped to handle complexity in nature if we just kind of remember how to do it. So I think we need just to be able to stand still, calm in the storm, be self-centered, relax, take a deep breath, reset the parasympathetic nervous system, and that will help us to be creative in uncertainty and kind of take better decisions. And I think also this is a bit why mindfulness is so popular. It helps us to kind of step out of the day-to-day heat, everything kind of taking your attention, and then step back and take better decisions. So downshifting is a key.
So is also expanding. There is no one person with all the answers, so involving more people is very essential. We need to collaborate We have to integrate more perspective, use a collective intelligence, and see new possibilities.
Yeah, and I think also the concept of the 5 core competencies for leadership teams. So communication, ensuring the exchange of information along all the members, collaborating, actually working together, not just exchanging information or synchronizing ideas, but actually doing work together. Creativity, so that's kind of coming up with new options, new possibilities. There's not one way to do things when it's uncertainty. And conflict, I typically say that unless there's conflict on a team, there is no energy, no one cares. The thing is to have know how to deal with conflict of the different interests to make it productive. And lastly, then change. Nothing is stable. That's the only kind of constant thing is change. So leading in this change across organizations is key. Okay, let's wrap up for today. We are curious about your reflections, so please share it in the comments. If you like this video, and share it with friends, and also check out the other episodes at leadingcomplexity.com/podcast.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.